Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Restitching the Tapestry. I am Donny Winter, and I am joined by my dear friend Ari Whipple for episode 17. So, again, I feel like every episode we do, we're just completely, struck by how far we've gotten into the series and how quickly everything's been going. And I'm going to follow suit with this episode and do the exact same thing and just say, wow, episode 17 and three more episodes, we'll be up to 20 episodes.
I know, we're coming up on it.
This is so exciting. It just makes me really happy. And I feel like, I mean, I'm always one of those people that's always trying to do this like retrospective on things. Looking back at all the topics that we've talked about, I think we've really covered a large swath and diversity of things. So to me, that's what makes this really creatively fulfilling and wholesome, is because we can touch on so many different areas. And as Ari mentioned before, we're going to keep doing these episodes so long as we can keep thinking of some ideas. So we're super excited. So let's see. Tonight we have Arby tuning in. We have Igni tuning in. Hi. Hello to both of you. David is here. It's good to see you. So while we wait another minute or so for more people to jump on, Ari, tell us about how you've been doing lately.
Pretty good. I've been doing my October updates on my channel if you haven't been paying attention. So I do daily divination. So I've been doing tarot card pulls, and I've been doing uh Donnie's Oct Poembers, and I've been doing which Donnie says are pretty good. And I've been doing I'm doing quoted days now, and I do Wikipedia articles of a day where I do a random Wikipedia article, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun on my channel. But it takes a lot of effort, but it's worth it just to update, and I have a lot of fun in October doing these for you guys. So yeah.
All in favor of Ari doing this outside of October, raise your hand. Only if, of course, you're able. But I really do enjoy those videos as well. And truthfully, it just keeps the creative juices flowing. I know on my Donnie Speaks channel, if you've not subscribed to that, go check it out. Subscribe to Ari's Strange Nothings channel too. I've been doing like the Oct Poember poems. I'm like 3 or 4 poems behind because that's usually what happens. But it's just been a fun challenge. Some of the poems end up being pretty strong pieces. Others are kind of a little, fizzling firework, but they work.
Oh, your
And
poems are great. Don't ever down talk your
oh,
poems.
I appreciate you. But it's really fun being able to do it because it's like I feel like it's exercising a muscle that should be exercised more often, you know? And and I think one thing that we've really talked about before is on the creative front is we want to encourage you to do the same thing if you were able to do so. No matter what creative outlet it is, try to do it regularly, create challenges, goals for yourself, because at the end of the day, it's just going to help you keep practicing at it. It's going to help you keep improving, and you might find that you're really impressing yourself with what you're capable of accomplishing.
That's
So,
true.
not to mention, this is a really predictable segue into what we're talking about tonight, but it could also be beneficial for mental health reasons too, because if we're forced to not be creative, that could adversely affect mental health, right? So, it was a really bad transition. But
It's a
anyway,
good transition.
it was so predictable. Oh well. So we have to, what drinks are we having tonight, Ari? You're having
Oh, I'm finishing off my wine. I've been drinking the last few episodes, and I'm finally down to the last glass of this wine. It's Witch's Brew.
ooh, perfect for the season, right? I
Perfect for
am
this.
I'm drinking apple cinnamon tea, which is also, I guess, perfect for the season, though I do miss having a truly, but those happened a while ago. Um, Oh, Taylor's here. Taylor, it's good to see you. Long time no see. I know you wish you could have a drink. I know you do. All right, so tonight's episode is about mental health stigmas. So before we get to talking about our topic, I would like to read our show's mission statement as usual. Many witness different atrocities, large or small, that fray the social fabric around us, and much of the time, many may feel powerless and know not how to address such things. This fray has gotten worse with the rise of social media, as in, we're able to share in this collective trauma as it goes viral and witnessing atrocities on a mass scale, thus allowing all of us to kind of partake in this collective grief and outrage. So, that begs the question of what can we do to mend the communities that have seen this considerable tragedy? So, our goal through this show is to work toward restitching the tapestry through conversation, creativity, and action. And honestly, all of this is accomplished through education, educating ourselves about these subjects, and sharing that learning that we experience with all of you. All right. So again, tonight's episode is mental health stigmas. So, Ari, would you like to start us off with this one? Like, because I really think that, like, I think you have a very good introductory set of thoughts to get us going for it.
So I think that it affects three different aspects. It affects your home life, your work life, and your love life. Like, I think those are three different aspects in which it really affects. Mainly, um, let me.
So, oh, David mentions that mental health is his jam. So, if you have anything to contribute, by the way, to our conversation, please do. And I feel like I should probably preface this. Ari and I have our own mental health journeys that we've been on, but we are not technically like professionals in the field or anything like that. So we can share our thoughts and experiences, but we're not going to necessarily tell you what to do because that's not really our place, right? Because everybody's experiences can vary. So anyway, sorry about that. I just wanted to preface that.
That's a good preface. Yeah, and everyday life with mental illness is fine as long as you don't talk about it, mention it, or bring it to notice. And then it's met with a lot of pushback in those areas of work, home, love, etc. So basically, as long as you don't talk about it and make it silent, it's fine. So it just it's kind of like the silent disease of if you don't make it known, it doesn't exist. And then the first mention of it, it becomes a problem. So you have to kind of like shove it under the rug and make it sort of like, well, I have to like kind of walk on eggshells around everybody around because uh, it causes problems for other people.
Well,
Um,
and what really makes it insidious is because I really like that you mentioned like it's like there's this instinct of sweeping it under the rug that a lot of people have, and the truth is those of us who do struggle with like mental health, we're always trying to appease the comfort levels of people who may not have the same mental health struggle or may not have any mental health struggle. So, like, the reason why a lot of it is still brushed under the rug is because people allow their discomfort with the subject or with those on different journeys to just make them not want to acknowledge it at all whatsoever.
mhm. So, uh, the first thing that I really wanted to talk about is how mental illness affects home life, um, and how it affects the family dynamic. And I think that really, I think that it affects the family dynamic in ways in which are hard to like describe initially because it depends on where you stand in your family. If you're like a provider of your family, this can really affect your family dynamic because um, having to provide for your family and while holding on to a mental illness can be quite challenging because having to provide for your family while still um, holding on to this mental illness, it's sort of like you do have to really like not make it a big deal. And this is uh RP mentioned it before we started our uh chat, that mental illness is strong with men, that um with men, they don't talk about when they have depression or other mental health stigma or mental health issues. They when they get depressed or when they have other emotional issues, they don't often relay these issues to people. They often will push these issues down, and they'll just become these providers of their families, and this often leads to problems because they're just going out there and doing what they feel is necessary to make sure that they're taking care of their families. And I think that isn't healthy, one, because it makes them into what I consider to be almost robotic, that they're just going out there doing what is necessary and then coming home, and it takes away from them being a whole person, because then they become almost like they're bottling up all this energy, and it comes out in ways in which are completely negative, that they may explode, or they may take to substance abuse, or they may uh, do domestic violence, or just things in which um, are completely unnecessary if they were just able to express themselves in a healthy and relatable manner. Otherwise, uh, if they could just communicate better. And I'm not saying that that excuses their behavior. I'm just saying if they were able to communicate easier, maybe these things wouldn't be happening, because they're bottling this up, and it like getting to the root cause of these problems. You know what I mean?
Right. I know one thing, like, coming from the male perspective that's very interesting is that there is a lot of internalized toxic masculinity that contributes toward men not being upfront and vocal about their own, mental health difficulties. And of course, it all comes back down to this notion that, oh, well, to express anything like that is a sign of weakness, a sign of not being able to sustain family. And that's a conditioning that's been agitating this for a very long time. And I think the what makes mental health stigmas difficult to identify sometimes is because there are so many other variables involved that contribute to those stigmas, and like they're being fed energy from these different locations that ultimately seek to disguise it or sweep it under the rug, as you were saying earlier. So, going to the chat box really quickly because I have seen a few
I'm
chats pop
excited
up.
for Taylor.
Taylor said, low key excited to raise my kid with the knowledge of my mental illness and my husband's. Awareness. Yes, that is good. That is good. Igni says, people do not like the neurodiverse community because it reminds them their world is a lot more grim and unfortunate. They want to live in their bubble of ignorance and their twisted perfection. Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. And then David says that the stigma of mental health is diverse and pervasive. Yes, I completely agree with that 100% too.
And with women, the problem with mental health is that, it makes the in the standard, atomic family unit, when you have men as fathers and women as mothers, um, and that atomic family unit, uh, uh, the problem with mental health stigmas is that uh, women are often seen as, when they have mental health issues, as being unfit to take care of their children, and unable to maintain the family unit, and unable to maintain the household, uh, and that they're considered less than, and that they're unstable, and they're considered the crazy lady, and there are just a lot of there are just a lot of like there are just a lot of stereotypes wrapped up in the mother who is has mental health issues, that it's like, what's wrong with mommy? Well, mommy has mental health problems, and it's
Yeah.
like, mommy spent time in the hospital, and why did mommy spend time in the hospital? Well, mommy had issues and she had to go away for a while, and it's like it's seen as like a family problem, and it's like the family unit breaks down, and just all sorts of problems.
Yeah, like, speaking of that, like, Taylor brought up a very interesting point too, saying that family mental health struggles also spread to the weird idea of accountability. Parents who have issues and could never address them struggle to accept their role in contributing to their children's mental health struggles. They couldn't hold their parents accountable for their trauma, so why should they be held accountable? Yeah, it's like this cruel cycle.
Mhm.
And 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 I don't think I've talked at length about this on my channel, but this has very much been apparent in my family. My family does have a history of mental health struggles, um, mostly depression, and my uncle on my dad's side took his life 3 years ago in April, and I think unfortunately, it was this really striking moment for my family in realizing that mental health is a real thing, because there have been members of my family suffering from depression, but they just kind of just pass it off as like, "Oh, I'm just being wimpy or being silly, or I just need to pull up my adult britches," and I will never forget having my dad look at me. This was the day, I think the day that my uncle took his life. My dad looked at me and was like, "Donnie, I now realize why you talk about it as much as you do.
Right.
I realize that it is something that people struggle with." And my dad even like went on further to talk about like his own experiences, and it was a very important bonding moment for us. And there was this interesting accountability that was acknowledged, I think, that really it was just a very surreal moment for me, and a very rare moment of a parental figure acknowledging, accountability with their own mental health and with other people's mental healths as well.
It's pretty intense. Um, yeah, I've had family members kill themselves due to mental health struggles too.
Mm.
Uh, and it's not fun. But I didn't have them really think about it, and they just sort of passed it off as well. It was an isolated incident, and nobody really talked about the mental health struggles in my family. We kind of just were like, "Oh, that's just one person. It doesn't run in the family." And now, as more people in my family have cropped up with mental health issues, we're talking about, like, how it does kind of run in the family, and then it does kind of actually maybe probably run in the
Mhm.
family, and that maybe there is a history of problems in the family of having mental health struggles, and that maybe it possibly could be genetic, and that maybe we do have genetic problems in our family of having a disposition, and that, hey, maybe there is a struggle that we do genetically do have that we've been ignoring because more of us have these problems, and that we're not getting diagnosed with, that we have lived undiagnosed with, some of us for our whole lives.
Mhm.
As we've just considered quirky or erratic or unusual.
Or fun high school stereotypes like emo or gothy, like, "Oh, that's just an angsty person over there," and don't get me wrong, like, I joke about that sometimes because it's probably part of the whole, like, the whole social conditioning, but it's always, like, kind of, like, taking mental health and putting it under, like, different social media filters, for example, to make it look pretty or to, like, distract it from what it actually is.
Right. But, like, after I had gotten diagnosed with bipolar, my cousin got diagnosed with bipolar, and I'm pretty sure my aunt is diagnosed with bipolar, but she doesn't have the actual diagnosis because she hasn't gone to the doctor and gotten the actual diagnosis. Because you have to want to get the diagnosis to get the diagnosis.
Mhm.
So you
Yep.
it's sort of like you live undiagnosed with these things, but she lives very erratically and has these very erratic views and lives
Yeah.
very erratically. And it's like,
And it's interesting that you mentioned the whole, like, you have to, like, get the diagnosis or work toward getting the diagnosis because, like, with mental health, this isn't something necessarily visible that a doctor can look at and be like, "Oh, yeah, you have this," or "You suffer from this," Like, it takes conversation, it takes an examination of sometimes family history. I was just diagnosed with bipolar 2, over the summer, and it was after multiple therapy sessions that we came to that realization, and after sharing some experiences regarding, like, my family, like, it's I mean, until they, like, would go and get help themselves, but it's thought that they probably have it as well, or at least certain family members, so
right,
it's
because until you get the diagnosis, you're just considered quirky or unusual or just having like
or
just
emotional
or
or
emotion.
dramatic or manipulative, like Taylor and Igny both noted. Yes. Yeah. I've been referred to as all three of those things.
Or just throwing a tantrum or just being wild or being extra creative today or just being up, having an up mood today,
Mhm.
or it could be any of those things. But really what it is it's bipolar.
Yep.
And people don't realize that it's when you get those diagnoses, it comes with when you get those diagnoses, then it's like, oh, you have
Mhm.
bipolar? Oh, I didn't realize you had the bipolar.
Yeah. I think what upsets me the most, is, like, when people say those things, like that you're being dramatic or manipulative or, like, you're throwing a tantrum, it's it's super duper gaslighting, basically, because, like, if we're trying to have a conversation about something serious, like, I've had people tell me before, like, "Well, Donnie, you're just probably being, like, oversensitive, or you're being your depression is getting the best of you, and you're not thinking objectively because of it, and it's just this, like, it almost the fear of that I've always had is, like, by acknowledging mental health, people aren't going to take me seriously, and I've had to, on my own journey, understand how to teach people that, yes, I can still be taken seriously and still be depressed, or still, be manic, or, you know? So
Through the course of the last probably about month and a half, I've been hypomanic. And, I don't know if I've mentioned this to people, but I've had a delusion that I've been working through, and I don't know if I've told people about this, but I've been working through it, and I've still been doing things, like, I mean, it doesn't mean that I can't do things or that I haven't been active and, like, participating. I'm not a danger to anyone, I'm not a danger to myself, I'm not running through the streets wild. I'm still sleeping at night. I'm still getting up in the morning. I'm still creative. I'm not overly creative. I'm not I mean, I'm still me. I'm just having these issues that I recognize and that I'm aware of. And it's like you can still be a productive member of society and have these problems and not be wild in the streets and not be hospitalized or need hospitalization. And people don't realize that there are varying degrees of what you need as far as what you need in care, and I think that's, like, something that, like, people don't realize that you can do outpatient therapy and still need help as far as, like, what you need, and
mhm.
so I'm looking, um Taylor says, "I constantly question if I have OCD, if I'm manipulating everything for attention or excuses." Uh, yeah, I question about my bipolar too, about whether or not if I'm being manic or if I'm being hypomanic, and or if what I'm doing is manic behavior, and I have a support system that I look around me and I say, is this am I like to gauge, hey, is this normal behavior for me? Or what do you think that I'm doing? Or like, how do you feel about what I'm doing? Is this normal to you? And this is why I have a therapist too that I talk to and I go, what do you think about this? How do you feel about this? Is this normal to you? What do you think about this? And like, so that's why I have a therapist that I talk to about these things, and because it's like, "What do you think about this? Let's get on the same page here," because they help me with those issues that I have, and that's why I have my
Mhm.
therapist, honestly.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because, like, I mean, ever since I had my diagnosis back in over the summer, I've been trying to get better with, like, asking the people around me, like, "Hey, am I acting differently, or am I doing something that would seem out of character, or like, how is this affecting you?" Like questions like that. Because the truth is, sometimes if we are in a state, no matter if it's like a low or a manic state, like sometimes that can cause us to look at things differently, react to things differently, you know? So like it is nice being able to have that support network that can be like, hey Donnie, like, are you all right? Like you're doing this. What's going on? Are you like do you want to talk about it? Just having that invitation is really helpful.
And sometimes I get defensive about it, that I'm like, "Well, no, like, I'm fine, like, why are you asking me about this?" But most of the time, I'm like, No, I'm fine, like, I but, like, sometimes I get really offended because it's like why are they bringing this up now? Like, you know, this isn't necessary. Like, this doesn't need to be brought up now. But like most of it, because it's like, because it is like a stigma, like
Oh, yeah.
you don't want it to have been brought up that moment, and like it's a family dynamic. It's you don't want your supports because like you don't always want it to be all roads lead to bipolar. You
Right,
don't.
right.
Or all roads lead to mental illness. You don't want it to always be, hey, is this your bipolar acting up? Or hey, is this
Well, interestingly, what really makes it vulnerable for people with mental health difficulties is when you take the step of being honest with it to other people, you are in a way placing your trust in those people to not use it as a weapon against you. And the truth is, like, I think many of us have had situations where we've had people use it kind of like as a jab against us from time to time, where for example, like if I have like a debate with somebody about something, or like lately for me it's been like a lot of political debates with people, and like I had somebody mention like, Donnie, are you sure this isn't you being like overly manic, like you just feeling the need to invest your energy into this?
First of all, they said overly manic. And that right there is a sign that they need to STFU. Because, first of all, overly manic suggests that you're manic in the first place and they
and
need to calm themselves down.
And it's suggesting that I am controlling the degree of mania as well. Like
Like, you can control that anyway. And, second of all, you can tell when somebody is being manic or overly manic because they are, first of all, physically erratic. They sound erratic, they look erratic, they cannot control the temper and sound of their voice, they can't control body movements. Like, you can tell, like, you can physically tell when somebody is being manic. Like, it
mhm,
is so physically impossible to not tell when somebody is not being manic.
right.
Like
I
like
know for me, it's largely about, like, paranoia levels. I don't experience paranoia often, but when I do, that is my surefire sign to myself that, okay, like, I am irrationally paranoid. I
But do
can't
you start
really.
talking faster when you get, manic?
Mhm. I start talking faster, or I start sounding overly technical about things, because sometimes that's my way of, like, making it seem like I'm normal when it's not really. I mean, normal as the conditioning suggests.
Do you get pressured speech?
What is pressured speech? Describe that for me.
It's like it's hard to say for it's hard to, like, describe, but it's like when when your voice gets, like, depressed is like a depression on your vocal cords, and they start to sound different. Your voice starts to sound a little bit different, and
Mhm.
it's just like you just sound different.
I don't know if I have observed my experience enough, or have had anybody tell me that. Um And I know, like, it affects everybody differently too, like, everybody has, like, different, like, nuances associated with it, but I don't think for me I've experienced that.
But you just sound it's just like y like, um like,
I've been.
look it up and see like, look up examples of pressured speech later on,
Mhm,
and check it out, but, um, because 'cause I've had pressured speech. I've only had it, like, once or twice, but, like, it is intense. Like, it's when you're, like, super manic. Maybe you wouldn't have it with bipolar 2, but, like,
mhm,
bipolar 1, like, I've had it, and it's not fun because it's really hard to speak.
mhm. Yeah, I haven't had any difficulties speaking or anything like that. Um, but, like, I do, like, when I have my, like, if I get really, really manic and then I, like, drop off from it, because it's for me, it's never a transition. It's always like it's like you are in a pool and then suddenly there is no transition to the deep end. There it is. And for like I get like this horrible lethargicness.
David said sometimes the words can be jumbled together with pressured speech.
Oh, okay. By the way, hi J Manuel. Good to have you here from Peru.
Um, but like, yeah, but before I had bipolar, I had just regular depression. Like I was just exhibiting signs of depression, and depression sucks.
Yes, it does. It
I
does.
suffered from depression for years before I suffered from bipolar. And I've suffered from bipolar depression.
Mhm.
I've actually gone into the hospital for bipolar depression. Um, and that sucks too. Bipolar depression sucks. Uh, where you don't get out of bed for like 18 hours a day or something. It's not fun. Because there are stigmas that you're lazy and that you can just magically get out of bed and just make it all better. Like I was at the point of where I was going over to my mom's house to eat dinner because I couldn't see myself going grocery shopping because I just couldn't even imagine taking the groceries up the stairs because I was so physically exhausted from the idea of just like carrying the groceries up the stairs because it was just the idea of it was just so overwhelming.
Mhm. Yeah. I get that way a lot, especially like when I'm feeling my very deep depressive lows, like just like socially interacting with people like almost becomes physically painful, like because it does take energy to do it, and it is a performance in some way. So you kind of have to like perform for people so
Mhm.
they know that you're okay, so they know that you're contributing to the social setting. And for me, like I know there are some days where if I know that I'm having one of those lows, I just kind of like lay low socially for a couple of days until I like work myself out of it.
Oh my god, I couldn't handle it. I would sometimes I think that's why I don't keep very many close friends is because it's just easier when you get low, if you don't have many friends, that you don't have to worry about having those interpersonal relationships. So,
Mhm.
like, you don't have to, like, worry about having a lot of people contacting you.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, also upsetting those people too. Like I
During their
know,
highs, yeah.
yeah, like either like during like the highs, like or like even if I'm in my reclusive lows, like I know I may not respond to messages as quickly. I may not be as articulate or as responsive, and I've had people get really upset over that, because when they see you performing at a certain level when you are like at like a nominal level, like a lot of people expect that constantly, and they don't realize that if a person's experiencing depression or another mental health difficulty, that might affect their ability to communicate. And that's been something that I've had to learn as well with other people in my life who also have mental health difficulties. And like if for some reason they don't talk to me for a few days and they say like, "Hey, Donnie, like, sorry, I was going through like an episode," like I'll be like, "I totally understand," you know. Whereas years ago, I probably would have gotten really upset because I wasn't aware that that could even be a thing until it started happening to me.
Yeah. Um, we totally got off track from our
We've
notes.
been having a good chat though, like. Oh, okay. So I guess let's talk a little bit more about mental illness and family. Did you have any like mental illness related things with regard to family that you wanted to share, or like?
I
Or
think
did we
that
already
we
talk about that?
we talked about family already.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think we were working I think, were we gonna talk about work?
Oh, yes.
Oh, no, we still were talking about family. The buck up advice.
Oh,
So, with depression, I used to have depression, and my mom used to say, "Buck up."
God. Like, buck up, man up. Oh my god, man up.
People used to have it worse.
When somebody says "man up" to me, like, I literally see red. Like, I literally feel like I could flip an SUV over. That's how angry I get. Either that or I shut
I
down.
feel like that advice is a stigma in and of itself. People have it worse,
Oh
or,
god,
like
yeah.
'cause it's like, you know, it's just saying, like, your pain is not valid.
Your pain isn't significant enough to be acknowledged. Yeah. Yeah, that like, between that, I've also had people who would say, like, "Don't make it always about you." It's not the world doesn't revolve around you, Donnie, like, it doesn't revolve around you and your depression and your mental health.
Right. So, but I used to hear that a lot when I was, in my teens, early 20s, mid-20s,
Mhm.
even into my 30s, I heard that, up until I had my first manic episode, I probably heard that. And then it was like, "Oh, now it's about your mental health because you had a manic episode. Now it's serious." But before it was like, "Buck up,
Well,
cheer up, buttercup."
it's sad that it took that to for a family to gain some level of acknowledgement about, like, mental health.
Have you seen the new Unsolved Mysteries, season 2 of Unsolved Mysteries?
Mm-mm.
Oh my god. It's so thin. So, okay, some of the episodes are strictly related to mental health. Like, one of the guys definitely he was working for the government. He had bipolar, uh, and he definitely had a manic episode and, like, had a heart attack and died. And, like, they don't mention the heart attack in the episode, but, like, he was, like, 60 something years old. He's, like, walking around with one shoe. He's, like, getting, like he had, like, dementia because he, like, would have trouble finding his car to the point of where, like, he would, on a regular basis, come home in a taxi because he was, like, having like, the guy had issues, and he had bipolar, and, like, the one thing you have to understand about bipolar is, like, no matter how manageable bipolar is, um, no matter how well you take your meds, with bipolar, especially bipolar 1, eventually, and sometimes, the meds can stop working. So, like, you could be taking the meds for 20 years, and your body just changes, and the meds just will stop working. So all of a sudden, you could be like 60 some years old and have an episode out of nowhere, especially if you're under duress, which apparently he had been like slowly becoming under duress about his neighbors building a house. Like he had becoming more agitated about his neighbors building this house. And they had said that he was getting more and more agitated about his neighbors in this house. And like that was a warning sign that they had kind of ignored. And so like I just was like, you are all very, very stupid. And like you completely ignored all of the signs of this guy breaking down slowly over several months. And that the meds had like were beginning to not work on this guy. And it happened right around Christmas, which I don't know about you, but I had my first episode around Christmas because Christmas is a very stressful time of year. And that's when a lot of people, a lot of bipolar patients have episodes because it's a really stressful time of year. And I was just like, I saw it and I was just like, my sister and I looked at each other like the guy had an episode. I don't know. This is not a mystery. This is not a mystery. This is not an unsolved mystery. The guy had an episode. He had a heart attack. He crawled into a dumpster and died.
Oh,
Like, not an unsolved mystery. This is just a very tragic case. It was just like, it's just like, because the woman was only married to him for like 13 years, so she probably hadn't seen like his ups and downs.
mhm.
But like, I was just like, oh,
Yeah, wow.
but I was just like, oh man, it was getting real thin in season 2. And then there was a woman who had that killed herself in a hotel room, and I was like, pretty sure she had depression. But like, like, and that she didn't want people to know who she was, but like, okay.
Right. Yeah, like, and the truth is, like, I think a lot of these programs too, just like, they might switch things up just for the dramatic flair of it too, or they might not be upfront about certain things because of that. Uh, so do you wanna talk about, I mean, obviously, we've received bad advice from people, like manning up and bucking up and sucking it up. Like, has there been any good advice that you've received?
um I think that the best advice that I've received lately has been from, I'm gonna say it's Muji. Muji has been giving me the best advice. Muji is he teaches meditation, uh, and he says if you experience pain or sadness or any kind of like extreme emotion, don't try to like force the emotion away from you. Don't try to like change the emotion. Don't try to like fix your life or fix it in any way. You should simply observe the emotion as it's passing through you when you're meditating or when you're living your life. So it's sort of like just let it pass over you and just let it just pass through you. And you're simply the observer of your life. So if you're feeling sad, you know, um, and you're feeling sadness, just observe it as it's passing and just let it pass through you.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
just let it go on by and just let it pass through you and just let it pass and it'll just pass on by. And then just focus your attention elsewhere and then eventually leave.
Mm,
And I've done it and it works. And it's
I
just what
really
you get
like
your
that.
attention. So and I've been sad before and it works. And it's such a weird feeling to have sadness pass through you and pass over you. But it feels good when it leaves. I Because I thought we were gonna have to put my dog down because he had jumped off the bed and he had hurt his leg, and so we thought that we were gonna have to euthanize him. So I was feeling really upset and I was feeling really guilty because he had jumped off my bed. And so I just was feeling a lot of guilt and shame and just upset. And I was just very sad. And I was just feeling all these emotions. And so I started crying and I was upset and I was just very sad. And so I just sat there and I was just like letting it pass over me. And I was just like, I sat there and I was like, I'm going to observe this emotion right now and acknowledge that I'm having this emotion. And then it just, and then it was gone.
Interesting. That is so interesting. I think I might try that. I know, like, I Taylor mentions, "I hate advice so, so much." And I do too, if it's bad advice especially. If it's good advice, like, I appreciate it, and it's interesting, David, you mentioned being kind to yourself, and that was a bit of advice that my own therapist had to work through a little bit because one of the big cornerstones of a lot of my mental health difficulties, sometimes it's the trigger, sometimes it leads to feeling this way, is not being kind to myself, self-deprecation. I really, really have a hard time with self-deprecation, and my therapist had to kind of reframe my thought process into realizing that and she would say, "Donnie, you have permission to exist in the spaces you inhabit."
Mm.
And and then she even went on further from that and said, "Donnie, you have a right to exist in the spaces that you inhabit." And that really like, I think that helped me in certain social situations because there are some social situations that are very triggering for me. If anything leads to public humiliation or anything leads to me looking incompetent or not capable, like, that's those are, like, my huge triggers. So, now, like, I'm able to navigate that a little bit easier because of that advice of how to kind of reframe that thought process a little bit. Does it work all the time? No. Um, does it work most of the time for me? Yes. So, but again, it's like as a person with a history of mental health difficulties, it's just been kind of like compiling this toolbox of um, methods and things to say to myself and ways to like help navigate myself through those difficult things. So,
David said, "The cure is in the pain, sitting with emotions we have. That's very much like dialectical behavior therapy. It's an amazing therapeutic modality."
Taylor
Taylor says,
says, even good advice. I'm like, how dare you? I get that way sometimes too.
"Me too."
Oh, so, um,
Let's finish on love.
yeah, let's talk more about because like we literally, honestly, we could do like 2 episodes of this topic.
We could do like a million episodes on this topic, let's be honest.
Right. We'll probably revisit it again in the future, but considering we have I mean, we'll probably go a little bit over the hour mark, but let's talk about love. Like, Ari, take it away.
Oh my god. So, um, when is a good time to tell somebody that you have a mental illness? When you're dating, because I have not found the right answer to this yet. Um, I
Um,
I tried to tell somebody right away, and they were okay, so if they accept like, I haven't told someone like, usually I don't tell them, like, on the dating apps, I don't tell them right away because, like, it's weird to tell somebody right away, and when I do tell them there was, like, one guy I told right away, and he was, like, super okay with it, but he ended up trying to be a creep, and he tried to, like, rape me. I don't know how to, like
oh,
he tried to get into my car and, like, it's a very long story, but, like, it's very long story. He tried to get into my car and, like, Get a get away with me? Like, I don't know how to explain it, but, like, he ended up being, like, a psychopath, and, like, I he was just a bad egg, and he scared the crap out of me, and I was just horrified by him, and, like, he was, like, super okay with my mental illness, he, like, encouraged it, in fact. So, like, that's why I was like, it's not always okay for somebody to accept your mental illness right away because they may end up being a creep. So, like,
so did this person in a way like exoticize your mental illness
they fetishized it a
or
little bit,
fetish?
yeah.
That's a better word. That's ooh, that's not good. That's super toxic. Like honestly, in my like, it really depends on the person, I think, that you're
Oh my god, road agents coming into the chat 'cause it's the worst time.
Hi. Hi, Rogue
Hi,
Agent Killer
road
Rodan.
agent.
We're talking about love and mental health. Welcome. So honestly, I don't think there is a right method or way because it really depends on the person. Like in my dating experiences, I usually wait till like the third date if we if we get to a third date. Um to be like very upfront because that's when you're starting to get to know people a little bit more. Of course, with gays, we move at the speed of light. So, it could happen on a first date. But like with my partner, like I didn't tell my partner I think until after we started dating, if memory serves me correctly. Because like for me, like it was a process of gauging his character and understanding like what he would accept and eventually realizing that like through like sharing mutual experiences that he has his own like journey that he's been on with mental health. So that like empowered me to be a little bit more transparent about my own. And arguably I probably could have been a little bit more transparent at the get-go, but like he was very familiar with what I did on YouTube, so he in a way knew that I was pretty transparent about mental health.
I
So
had a guy on Bumble literally ask me, "Why aren't you at work right now?" And I said, "Because I'm on disability and I'm a writer by trade." And he's like, "You're on disability? What's your disability?" And I was like, "Holy shit. Who are these
it's
people?
like, dude, like that's your business. Like
Like, literally 3 questions, and he's asking about what my disability is." And I was like, "What is going on? Who are these people?" So I deleted the app because I was like, "I can't do this. I can't handle this."
yeah. It's either like for me, it's either people who get overly curious or overly fetishizing it. I cannot say that word tonight. Um, Another thing that I really despise, and I've had guys do this to me in the past, where they kind of treat you like you're this broken creature, where they are under responsibility of fixing you,
Oh my god.
and that really drives me like it just drives me up the wall because I'm just like, I don't need fixing. Like I'm on my own
Or
journey.
you don't have problems, you don't, or you're not broken, you don't have problems, it's all in your
Hmm.
head.
Oh, yep. Back to that gaslighting. Yep. Hmm. I love all of you. Everybody tuning in and commenting. I love all of you.
Me too, you guys are amazing.
It's okay, Killer Rodan. We swear a lot too. I especially swear a lot.
I do too. I'm just kinda
It's
quiet
fun.
about it. I'm quiet about it.
I think of profanity as being like punctuation in sentences.
I
Like
consider them word sprinkles.
oh my gosh. So, okay, so we were talking about love. Was there anything else you wanted to add about love and relationships?
Oh, I don't know, let me look at my notes.
We're gonna go over everybody, just FYI. Hope you're all right with that.
And modest too, rogue agent. I'm cute, huh? Oh, yeah, I think I'm done with love. Let's go to your discussion questions, Donnie.
Okay, so Taylor's comment broke me. A teacher thing. Okay, so the discussion question. Sorry, that like that got me. Um, so when did you first discover you struggled with mental health difficulties?
Um, I think the first time I realized that I had problems with mental health, I was 8 years old or so, and I was in the 3rd grade. It was like having trouble. It was maybe the second grade, actually. I was having trouble sleeping. I was having trouble functioning in school. I was just like, um, it was just a little bit after the divorce, and my mom was having trouble with my sister, and I was just having trouble adjusting to things, and I was just things were not quite right, and I was just having trouble sleeping. I was sleeping in class. I was like, I could, and it only got worse in third grade. I could feel myself getting depressed. And there are pictures of me where I'm wearing all black, and there are pictures of me where I'm like not smiling, and I'm like, I seem like I'm unhappy. Um, Even though I'm considered the star student and I am supposedly like one of the best students in class. And I just I remember that year just being like a really hard year, and where I'm just doing a lot of work and I'm just really focused a lot and I'm just really tired. And so second and third grade, 7 to 8 years old, I think, probably.
Wow. That like it's interesting that you mentioned that you can look back at pictures and see like manifestations of like that mental health state back then. Um, P.S. Hi Shayna, it's good that you're here. Happy to see you. So for me I think it was in middle school. Like I was like maybe 11 or 12 when I started noticing I would often isolate myself from people at school, um, because bullying and public humiliation was triggering like self-loathing, and that would transition into just depression about everything. And like I just remember that's when the dynamic of us versus them started. And that's what really really got me going, when it came to starting my acknowledgement of depression. Now, when it comes to um, bipolar, I didn't start noticing my shifts until in my mid to late 20s, actually, because I would go through stints where I would be very low for a very, very long time. And then I would experience manic episodes where it would be like I was so high that it felt like I was breathing for the first time,
Mm.
you know? And when I started acknowledging the extreme ends of those shifts, that's when I was just like, this isn't how it used to be. Like, this is different, this is. And then when I experienced this happened like a month or two ago, I experienced an episode where I felt this undiluted paranoia for the first time ever. Like, I had never experienced, like, I've always had anxiety, but paranoia is a very different sensation.
It really is, yeah. It
And
it comes really quick, and,
it oh yeah, it comes really quick. For me, it took days to recover from. Um, because it, like, literally, I would look at everything in my life and think that, like, people had ulterior motives, that
yes.
things weren't as I was seeing them, that there was something behind that I wasn't able to notice, you know? So and that really upset me when I experienced it, because I've always been the type of person who is like, I've always prided myself, like, I'm super self-aware of my mental health. I can talk myself through it. I have these tools and tricks, and like, I can work through it. I couldn't, though. This time I could not. And that was my moment where I was just like, you need to get help, Donnie. You, like, don't be ashamed to get help. Reach out to people. If you can, be transparent. It was a very interesting experience, and it just goes to show you that even like at different points in your life, you may come to different understandings and realizations of your mental health. We could have a whole nother episode about that too, pretty much. So, this is an interesting question. We have two more discussion questions left. As people have undergone a mental health journey, or as people having undergone a mental health journey and still ongoing, in what ways have you had to take on the burden of educating people in your life?
Um, so I've definitely had to really let my family and then let my friends know, and I've done this on my channel too, about just what bipolar is for me. And I think that like uh it's really, I think that I've done good and really explaining what bipolar has been for me, what my journey has been. Um and I hope that it's helped, uh because it's been an interesting journey. It's definitely been a hard journey. Um, I think that like the goal has always been to like talk about what happened to me, and talk about, because the things that happened to me weren't easy, and I definitely went through some very hard things. I went through some very uncomfortable things. I definitely have done things that I'm not proud of, and I fess up to those things that I'm not proud of. I But I've learned from those things, and I think that they should serve as an example of how bipolar can manifest, and that how it can, how people can really, what people can take from that, that it can serve as a lesson. So, I hope that that's, you know, that if somebody can take something from that, that's been my goal all along.
And the truth is, I am one of those people who've taken something from it because had you not been so open about your own experiences, I would have never really put words to the shifts that I have experienced in the recent past. And I think you probably remember like me initiating conversation with you a couple of times to ask questions about it, um to like just like kind of have you be like a sounding board with regard to mental health, and it helped lead me to eventually getting therapy again. So I would say that yes, like it is helping. And I really think that by sharing our stories, we are disempowering those stigmas, because at the end of the day, those stigmas, their sole goal is to silence people, really, to get them to not acknowledge, to sweep it under the rug, to pretend that mental health isn't really a thing. And to answer that question myself, I I have undergone, like, the journey of having to educate people as well, like, family on a different front. Unfortunately, it's taken a little bit more time for family to come to an understanding. For friends, it's been a little bit easier because I have friends who also struggle with mental health, but I've also tried over the past few years to be very transparent about it on YouTube as well. And, like, I remember it was a couple years ago, I did a series called Disempowering Depression, and that's the first time on my channel, aside from maybe talking about bullying experiences, where I literally tried to have deep conversations about my own mental health, and that helped me learn a lot about myself in the process. So even when we're educating other people about it, sometimes we're also educating ourselves at the exact same time. So just checking on the
Yeah,
chat
because we've been
really quickly.
ignoring it.
Sorry,
Uh,
guys. We were on a roll there. So Igni says that the messages didn't send that he's gonna be watching the video later. Okay, Igni. Thank you for coming on tonight.
I said I'm considering getting tested once more to see if I'm bipolar. I've gone through extreme lows. It lasts more than a few weeks to months than manic episodes where I was constantly on the go. Yeah, that's definitely one of the signs. First started experiencing stuff like that in my 20s, where I would, in college, I would start pulling all-nighters in college, where I would go 12, 13, 14, 15, sometimes 16 hours at a time. And then I would crash for like 4 or 5 hours. And then I would get up and go and do that again. And I would do that for weeks at a time. And that was my college schedule. So if you think that you're doing that, it could be that you're just in the early stages and that you're just progressing. Or it could just be that you're on a schedule like that. But if you think that you are, you should get tested, and you should look into it because you should take your mental health seriously. And definitely, if you think that you are, try to get rest, because rest is one of the biggest factors into progression of bipolar. Um, that's one thing my therapist told me is that things progress into bipolar more severely if you don't get rest. So
Hmm.
if you are progressing into bipolar, things can progress more severely if you don't get enough sleep. So try to get as much sleep as you can. Um,
It's like
so
factory resetting your mind in a way. Like I know for me, it gets worse for me when I'm way exhausted.
right.
Yeah.
And try not to drink as much coffee if you can. That's another environmental factor. If you drink too much coffee, that can also affect the fact that like episodes and just there are things that you can do to prevent things from progressing worse. So uh you can look into that, but getting tested is a way if you think that you are. If you think you are, you should definitely get tested. So
Right, for sure. Um, RB tuned back in. Good to see you. We've basically just been talking about mental health. We've been talking about our own journeys with regard to mental health. Taylor says, "Oh yeah, like coffee and OCD are not friends." Killer Rodan says, "I love coffee." See, that's one of my like difficulties. I really love coffee too, but I do notice
I love coffee.
when
It
I
was
drink too much of it. Oh yeah, like if I'm in a manic state and I drink too much coffee, that's not good.
right. I
Mm-mm.
have to be careful about how much coffee I drink these days. Unlike, um, I won't drink I won't drink more than a 24 ounce, and, like, even then, I have to be really careful about, like
Mhm.
I'll get, like, maybe an Americano, which an Americano is less coffee than just getting drip coffee, 'cause, Americano is just,
It's like 2
uh
shots with hot water in it.
2 shots with hot water.
Mhm.
So, but drip coffee is actually more coffee per than espresso.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
doing
it's like it's that dilutedness is what really matters. Like, I have like, I can drink coffee, literally all day. I've been getting to the point where I try to switch to tea a little bit because there's not as much caffeine in it, and that's been helping me. Um, so, like, there are, like, different ways to approach it. So let's move on to our last question. We have 9 people watching. Yes. So, do you have any advice for people who may be struggling with other people in their lives misunderstanding or invalidating their mental health struggles?
The first thing is, tell them that they're wrong and tell them that, your struggles are valid, and that they, are invalidating you, and that, seek out those who will support you, because there are those that support you. uh, you know, um, don't don't let them bully you. Don't let them put you down and put you in a box that says that you are not important, and that your struggles aren't important, and that what you're going through is uh, is invalidating. I know that sometimes it's hard, especially if you're in a work situation and it's a boss, or someone in a system of power. But don't let them do that. You can always go over their head and seek a higher system of power. Seek out those who will validate you, because you deserve better, and you deserve to be heard, and you deserve to be treated with respect, and you just deserve better than that.
Yeah. Don't let people make you think that your reality isn't real. And
Mm.
because people will gaslight if they're not comfortable with talking about mental health. Were you about to say something, Ari? I apologize if I cut you off.
No, no, I wasn't. Go ahead.
Oh, if I were to put out any advice regarding that, I would say also if they are people that are really close to you, that are people you don't have the luxury of removing from your life socially, sometimes patience is the best solution too. I know for me, it's taken a lot of really difficult, vulnerable conversations with people to get them to understand. Now, mind you, if you aren't feeling the ability to have a conversation all the time, you don't expect yourself to do so. You can't be the educator 100% of the time. All right. But if you do see educational moments opening up with people in your life, use them to your advantage, okay? Because it might be helpful. It could be something as simple as maybe sending an article about bipolar disorder to a friend, or sending like some sort of small thing that details anxiety to somebody that you might know who may not be super familiar with it. So, or maybe even just talking about your experiences. Again, like what we were saying earlier, sharing your story sometimes is,
Just
um,
enough. Yeah.
yeah, just enough.
Just talking about what you're going through. I mean, when you talk about it, it kind of removes the stigma of your experience and makes it an everyday occurrence. When you talk about what you're going through, it makes it just more real.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. This has been such a great conversation tonight. All of our conversations are great conversations, but at this one, I know for both of us, this was a very important episode because our journeys have led us in so many directions and difficult moments, moments where we've felt isolated, and being able to share our experiences like this together, including all of you share your experiences. I think it's empowering.
Mhm.
It really is empowering. So I think we're going to wrap up for tonight, though. Ari, do you have any parting words?
You are important. Your experience is important. Never forget that. And I love you, and you're amazing.
I love it. I think those are the perfect parting words. I love you all. If you've not subscribed to our channels yet, please do. Subscribe to mine, subscribe to Ari's channel, Strange Nothings. Click like on our video, share it around if you feel that people might find it beneficial. And you have a great weekend. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.